So welcome to the 2020 NHL Draft Lottery preview. We're less than 24 hours away from the actual Draft Lottery where we get to find out which teams are going to be winning the top 3 spots in the 2020 NHL Draft. Today we're taking a look at the teams with the best odds, what's the most likely scenarios to play out, and we're also looking at the Draft Lottery history for the last 10 years to help us predict what might actually go down. We'll jump into that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned today, we're previewing what's likely going to happen for the 2020 NHL Draft Lottery. Now, of course, this year's Draft Lottery is kind of unique. It's a Draft Lottery that we haven't seen before. We could end up having this in more than one phase. It really boils down to how things go this evening for this 2020 Draft Lottery. I mean, obviously, there's 3 spots up for grabs. If teams that are not in the bottom 7 end up getting selected, well, we could end up having round 2 of the Draft Lottery later on, once the qualifying round of the playoffs is completed, once the NHL returns to play, or assuming it does. Of course, if anything happens and the NHL's return to play plan does not materialize, then they're going to have to go about this in a slightly different way, and they might have to announce some additional rules in place as a precaution in case that does not happen. Of course, as we know right now, how it's going to work is there's normally 15 teams in the Draft Lottery, so there's only 7 teams that are not in the NHL return to play format for the playoffs. So those 7 teams are in the lottery for sure, and the other 8 teams that would normally make up that bottom 15 are basically going to be called placeholders. We're going to call them Team A, B, C, D, and so on to create those 8 spots. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind here as well is we have some teams with multiple first-round selections, different odds that we don't always see heading into the Draft Lottery. For example, the Ottawa Senators are very fortunate. They have 3 first-round picks, 2 of which are in the bottom 15 for this Draft Lottery. Of course, they have their own selection, which have the second best odds of winning. And then there's the San Jose pick, which they acquired in the Erik Karlsson trade, that was the 3rd best odds of winning first overall. So Ottawa certainly stands to have some great haul of prospects and some potentially, great draft lottery luck here, which they haven't really had a lot of in the past. So we'll see how that goes. Of course, the New Jersey Devils also have 3 first-round picks, and of course, a couple of them are in this Draft Lottery as well. They have their own selection, and then there's technically the pick that would belong to Arizona. Technically, the Coyotes pick would have the 10th best odds at being selected for the Draft Lottery to win and first overall selection. But of course, the Coyotes are in the qualifying round of the 2014 format, so they're not going to be called the Coyotes in the lottery. They're just going to be, Team A, B, C, D, etc. So it is possible, though, that depending on how the Coyotes do in the qualifying round, if they lose and end up back in there, the Devils could also have that second pick in the top 15. Now, one other thing with that selection, it was top 3 protected. So if for any reason they ended up in the top 3, the Coyotes would have the option to keep that pick and defer to New Jersey the following year, so they'd get a 2021 NHL draft selection instead. So of course that pick traded hands during the Taylor Hall trade, which happened a little ways before the NHL trade deadline. So certainly Ottawa and New Jersey have the most picks and will be the teams to watch when we actually reach the NHL draft. They also have a lot of other mid-round picks. Montreal's another team as well that have been hoarding a lot of other draft picks through trades. They're probably going to be the 3 busiest teams when it comes to making trades and possibly packaging things together to move up or down. Now let's jump in and take a look at the odds for each of these teams and what their best chances are to win first overall. Now, as you can see, of course, with the Detroit Red Wings being in the 31st overall position, last in the league, they have the best odds to win this selection. It was an 18.5% chance in the lottery. Of course, Ottawa is next up with 13.5% for being the second worst. And then, of course, the Ottawa Senators, again, via the San Jose Sharks pick, have the 3rd best chances at 11.5. So when you put those 2 together for the Senators, that gives them a 25% chance at winning that first overall pick, which is certainly much greater than the 18.5% chance. So realistically here, Ottawa's odds of getting first overall are better than any other team in this draft lottery. Now you also have the Los Angeles Kings with a 9.5% chance, and it keeps going down from there, drops anywhere from 1 to 1.5%, each one down to get Anaheim Ducks at 8.5, New Jersey with 7.5, Buffalo was 6.5. And then, as I mentioned, teams 8 through 15 are going to be called A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H, ranging from 6% all the way down to 1%. And then if any of those teams are selected, there'll have to be a phase 2 here for the next round of the draft lottery once the qualifying round of the playoffs is completed. So even though these are the odds, of course, the odds don't always go in your favor, as we know. It's actually not super common for the team with the best odds to win. So let's take a look at some history to determine what's happened in the past that it might help us predict what's going to happen in the future for this 2020 draft lottery. Let's look at the last 10 years and we'll see which team had the best odds and who was actually drawn with that first overall selection. Now, as you can see, back in 2010, which was the Taylor Hall draft, the Edmonton Oilers had the best odds of winning, and they actually did win that draft lottery. Now, the rules back then were slightly different than they are today, but they were the number one team with the best odds, and they did end up with the pick. In 2011, once again, the Oilers had the best odds, but New Jersey actually won the lottery, but the Edmonton Oilers still ended up picking first overall because the Devils were the 8th overall team, and because of the rules back then, you could move up a maximum of 4 spots, so the Oilers got to retain that first overall selection. Of course, there was 2012, the Columbus Blue Jackets were the worst team in the league, had the best odds, but the Edmonton Oilers came along and won, who had the second best chance at the draft lottery. In 2013, it was the Florida Panthers, who were the worst team in the league, but the Avalanche, who was also the second worst, once again won that lottery. In 2014, the Buffalo Sabres were in last place, but it was the Florida Panthers, again, with the second best odds that won that draft lottery. Of course, that was the Aaron Ekblad draft. In 2015, the Buffalo Sabres, again, were the worst team in the league, but lost out to the Edmonton Oilers and grabbed Connor McDavid. Obviously, that was a big-time draft with McDavid and Eichel and others. Obviously, the Oilers were very lucky there. They were actually the third best odds going into that draft lottery. 2016 was the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's where they were able to grab Austin Matthews. The Leafs were the worst team. They did win, so they actually got first overall and had the best chances to do so. 2017, we saw the Colorado Avalanche be the worst team in the league, but New Jersey, who had the 5th best odds, were able to move up and grab Nico Hischier first overall. In 2018, we saw the Buffalo Sabres once again be the worst team in the league for the 3rd time since 2014, and this time they actually got the pick first overall with the best odds going in their favor. Then, of course, there was last year where the Ottawa Senators were the worst team in the NHL, 31st overall. Of course, they didn't even hold their draft pick. It was actually moved to the Avalanche in the Matt Duchene trade, and many people joked all along that maybe that it would end up gifting Jack Hughes to the Avalanche. But, of course, the Ottawa, in this case, even though they had bad luck by not being drawn, they actually had really, really good luck that the top 3 picks all went to other teams, even though they were the worst team and had the greatest odds. And Ottawa ended up picking 4th overall, so that pick went to the Avalanche, where they grabbed Bowen Byram. In this case, New Jersey were the 3rd best odds, moved up again to grab 1st overall last year, where they were able to snag Jack Hughes. So if you look at the combined history here, in the last 10 years, the team with the best odds were able to pick 1st overall, technically on 4 occasions, but they only won the lottery 3 times. Obviously, one of those scenarios there was in 2011 with the New Jersey Devils winning the lottery, but Edmonton retaining 1st overall because of the rule changes back then. Obviously, made things a little bit different. The second best odds team have won on 3 different occasions as well. And obviously, we saw the 3rd best odds work out to win 2 times in the last 10 years, with the 8th best team, like New Jersey, technically winning it once, but only moving up 4 spots. And then the 5th best team winning it once as well, which was New Jersey just a couple of years ago in 2017. So obviously, if you take a look here, the teams in the first 3 spots win it 8 out of 10 times. It's an 80% chance. So that tells you that the odds are really high that we're either going to see Detroit or Ottawa picking 1st overall. That's an 80% chance based on the last 10 years of history, because Ottawa has picks 2 and 3 of the best odds to win. That really puts it in their favor more than ever. So obviously that's good news if you're an Ottawa Senators fan, but of course there is no guarantees at all in this. This is pure luck in a draft lottery format. So the team with the best odds, Detroit, also has really good chance here as well. But history will tell us, based on all this information, that the odds of Detroit or Ottawa picking first overall, like I said, is really, really good. But of course, the spots 8 through 15 who could be drawn in a top 3 spot, you just never know, could end up being a team who was already in a playoff spot when the NHL season went on pause. Really, it could be a team like the Pittsburgh Penguins. It could be a team like the Dallas Stars. It could be a team like Vancouver or Vegas. You just don't know. Any of these teams that had strong seasons but might have a bad playoff could end up getting a really high pick out of this and end up with a stud player that they never expected in a million years. It's going to be a really unique draft lottery. We might end up with a part 2. We'll have to remain to be seen. I will certainly be posting a video sometime after the results are posted here, once they're made known, and I'll give you my full reaction and scope on what I think is going to go down here and react to how everything turned out. So stay tuned for that. That'll be coming very soon. It'll be 8 o'clock Eastern time on NHL and NBC, with the announcement coming tonight for the draft lottery. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you check it out, and check out Top Shelf Hockey for full reaction afterwards. Thank you very much for watching, everybody, and I will catch you next time.